everyone.
Hello, everyone on this beautiful planet. This is Maya Seventh Sun, and today I'm joined by the awesome Ms. Laura Eisenhower. Hi, Laura. Welcome.
Hey, Maya. Good to see you.
Yeah, it's so nice to tune in with you here. And we're connecting today because we're going to be presenting together at this amazing event, Weaving the Dream, in Healesville, Australia. We're looking forward to you coming and presenting your amazing information. Sometimes I think of your information as this cosmic encyclopedia. You have so many weaves. And so I was just wondering if you have anything that you would like to, you know, chat to us about these incredibly intense energies that we're experiencing during this eclipse window from this new moon to this full moon eclipse in Capricorn. I certainly know I've been getting some downloads, and I'd love to hear what your thoughts are on this powerful, potent window.
Yeah, it is really powerful because eclipse energies align with the nodal axis. And when we talk about nodes, north and south node, it's really our deeper soul journey. And so when we see the nodes, the north and south node in a personal astrological chart, it really shows a person what their challenges are in this lifetime that are actually coming from other lifetimes, and also the things that they have brought in order to continue with. So sometimes it means a misstep. Sometimes there's something that is important to remember. Sometimes the energies are totally clear and a person is almost creating a reset. So when we look at the eclipse energies, it impacts us on a more collective level. So the north and south node are going to show the growth period currently for humanity, particularly related to the ascension timeline, because the programmings that we're under and the false matrix that we're born into are not quite on the trajectory of ascension. When we start to go into the soul nature of our experience, which we all have the free will to decide to do, we start to connect into that and what pieces we're missing or what we need to integrate or be aware of in order to be on that path. And ascension energies need to go sort of in a methodical step-by-step like basis. So if we're going to evolve on a collective level out of the personality matrix, which not only mind controls the ego or throws a person into a negative ego program or creates a victim mentality or a lack of self-worth or a compromising of one's sense of identity and just this injustice to, hold us in this space of trauma that impacts the way we view ourselves, is very difficult to move on to these other levels. Although many people, especially the ones that are targeted, indigenous cultures and native cultures being one of them, and star seeds that hold that soul awareness and beyond, into the universal mind and heart energies of the 0 point unified field are targeted in that way by trying to destroy their habitat, their livelihood, and their ritual or ceremonial way of living that is an honoring of, Mother Earth. So right now, we're in this window period. July 2nd was a solar eclipse in the sign of Cancer, representing the North Node, though. So that was a time for a lot of people to feel into where they need more self-nurturing, where they might be out of balance with others in their life that they need to be more compassionate and empathic to, where they might identify with the wounds of the collective and the earth body, and just sort of that more receptive and intuitive aspect of self, of course, within both men and women. And we have this Chiron square, which is an aspect of friction that is bringing up all these different wounds connected to it. So if a person's in relationship with somebody that is closed off to it or is trying to integrate it or understand it, it can create a lot of upheaval. And on the world stage, we're seeing that with the dark agendas beginning to crumble, where the crimes against humanity are being revealed more and more, because the mother energy in this ascension window is increasing. Ever since 2010, the sun started to move through the 13th sign of Fiacus. And I don't want to go on too long, but basically between July 2nd, the North Node solar eclipse in the sign of Cancer is now taking us into a partial lunar eclipse in the, wait, I hope I said North Node Cancer, into the South Node Capricorn. And it's a partial lunar eclipse, but a full moon. And so this is helping us to see the foundation that we bought into, the foundation in terms of the matrix. What have we grown familiar with? What is our comfort level based on programmings we might have formed attachments to that we don't realize are maybe unhealthy? So as we see this stuff come to the surface in the greater world stage, it also reflects onto us and what we might have attached ourselves to, maybe facades we believed in, maybe things we were in denial about. So we're going through a massive reset of how we relate to Saturn and the physical reality. And because Pluto is conjunct this eclipse coming up July 16th to 17th in the sign of Capricorn, being a south node, we're actually almost time traveling, especially with this Mercury retrograde, to frame our perceptions about even our history. You know, what is the false history? And what are the distortions of the masculine and feminine that we bought into? Because this polarity of Cancer Capricorn is helping us to actually address all the imbalances and assaults on this true divine union that exists within our soul. That is a part of our greater DNA. And the matrix programs have kept us locked into this lower expression of it. And so this is a great opportunity for us all to squarely address these wounds that for some have become very unconscious, played out in outer facades or buying into something or externalizing everything from the way we choose to walk this timeline where we're at the mercy of whatever we hear in the news, where we might have bought into a new age perception about what the end times is, where we're waiting for a savior, and where we, are not doing the inner work or the shadow work to recognize that the shift is within us. And so a lot of those wounds that create that externalization are forcing us to turn back to ourselves and look at things squarely in the head as far as how our physical lifestyle is showing where things aren't on track, our personal relationships, our health, and so on. So that's just, kind of a little bit of a
wow,
massive.
That's quite an overview, isn't it? Because I mean, most of this generation on the planet has come through from a Christian mindset where there's a God outside yourself. So externalizing the power outside of yourself, it's now a really powerful time. I guess in a way, acknowledging the wounds and the trauma is a great gift in the end, because it's the pathway inward, and if you don't go inward and realize the potential that is within each and every one of us, then you're continually banging your head against this big brick wall, or the matrix brick wall. And so I find it really fascinating that you're talking about that, because I know when I'm working in the clinic with a lot of people, it's particularly in this window, it's become incredibly multidimensional. And like that people are actually waking up to the fact that we're more than just a human in this 3D body, a 9-to-5 slave, that we're actually really a soul, a spirit, and that this soul has had many, many, many different incarnations. And so the trauma can move across timelines. It can move from lifetime to lifetime, and we can come in and be running these subconscious loops without actually even knowing what is happening. And it's an honor and a pleasure for me to work with those people every day when I can locate on their timeline, hey, this is something that you brought in, and we're going to clear this, we're going to move this. And then actually seeing the change in people, when they're having these experiences of transmutation, because it really is, and this window is such an amazing window for transmutation, and unfortunately for a lot of people, if you've got your schedule really banked up and you're really busy and you've got heaps on, it's kind of a tricky ground to navigate, because you really need some quiet time to actually sit with yourself and sit deeper into the soul of self. Here is the soul of self, and it connects to the heart, and then it connects to the lower dantian, or the Svadhisthana. And what I find is really interesting, what you're saying about indigenous cultures, and a lot of people, homeless people and indigenous people, have a lot in common because they've been displaced. And when we know in traditional holistic medicine that the Svadhisthana or the sacral chakra or the lower dantian, whatever philosophy you want to come from, is actually Svadhisthana translates to my home, my abode. And so with people being displaced, the planetary trauma field is actually, I feel it's at maximum at the moment, because we have all these souls who've come here to find that place of safety, find that place of home, and they're continually being displaced because they've come in with this subconscious karmic loop that keeps looping them and looping them, which is one of the reasons why, you know, I feel it's awesome that we're going to have this event in Australia, because we get to actually hold a space for people to go into that transmutational space and actually consciously make a change in their life, because it is really tough going when you're doing this alone. You know, I mean, going in within and realizing your own internal intelligence is a courageous road. It's a courageous road. It's not easy. It's certainly not the easier road. Maybe going out and buying a fast Ferrari and drinking heaps of shots or whatever would appear to be the easiest way, but really it's just creating more fuel for that tape to continue running, you know. And I think a lot of people go on about addictions and things like this at the moment in the new age. And yeah, of course it is good for us to be mindful about what we're putting into our bodies and what we're consuming, but at the same time, we can also create an environment where we realize we're a spiritual being. We really are a spiritual being having a human experience. It's that way around. And when we can embrace those spiritual aspects of ourselves, or those soul aspects of ourselves, then we don't even think about the fast car Ferrari or the, you know, 10 lines of cocaine. Our consciousness is expanded beyond the matrix of what, you know, the 7-day week in the Gregorian calendar that exists Monday to Friday. Humans have been in this loop for centuries where they work Monday to Friday and then they're allowed 2 days off. And, you know, if you have a family, you don't really have 2 days off. You're taking kids here, you're taking kids there. And so this has just been this cycle that's been moving around and around and around for centuries, and humans need a break. And where have we created the space in our society for spiritual evolution? It's like, it's almost being emitted as we go further and further into this cyber realm. And you know, I'm you know, it's so awesome to talk with you, because I feel that both of us share that passion about how holding that space or facilitating that space for people to have that spiritual exploration and to get to know who you are, who your magnificence is, you know. And we're all really incredible beings. We just have chronic amnesia, you know, we just have really chronic amnesia.
Totally. And it becomes a collective issue, because when we think about unity and oneness, the permeating energetic that dominates the collective conscience, that's where the shift needs to happen. Because if there's denial of our true and authentic relationship with nature and our own authentic self, then we are a part of enabling the displacement of those that live really close to source and the earth. And that is our own soul essence that we're denying from ourselves. And so the personality matrix is basically saying we live in a conditional realm where we're only loved conditionally, and we only have worth if we achieve these things based on a reward system of, you know, you need to do this to make money, and this is what you have to do. You have to go to school and get the certificate and then get this career, and this is how you make money. This is how you'll be comfortable and successful. And so it's conditional, because if you don't do it well, you fail. You're called failure. And then you have to carry that stigma, and it's a very early conditioning, instead of the unconditional love, which we all seek with our own parents, with our partners. We know that we can't sustain a positive relationship with our own family or partners if we're only loved conditionally. Then it usually leads to breakup, because we're set up for failure. But the Matrix program set us up for that. And that's why there's an epidemic of divorce and estrangement from our families, because they want to hold a certain status or an expectation. And so we all, like you said, just have to be very courageous and brave and seek the rest of ourselves and give ourselves permission to feel the unconditional love of the goddess of the planet, of the mother, father, the electromagnetic frequencies that run through our being in the earth grids, just as a circulation that gives us health and clears our chakras. That doesn't even need to be given a gender role, because that's been targeted to the point where people are, oh, you're only about the mother. It's like, what about it? It's like, it's about balance. And everybody gets so triggered, and it's so hard to just even share a positive message and even talk about some of this stuff, because there's so many words that are sacred, or so many ways of expressing something that have a great intention, that are dismissed, because part of the programming too is to create a false version that comes close enough to truth to lead people on, and then disappoint them to the point where they negate it altogether, which actually creates atheism, or even the need to create movements to fight for something, rather than look within and rebuild the soul architecture and bring harmony into all these opposing archetypes and root races that are actually supposed to work in harmony. And really, we're only fighting ourselves if we negate any one of us. And if we notice that we're opposed to a programming, we need to have the compassion to see that person beyond the programming, so that we can help pull them out of it and help them to remember the truth of who they are, because we need to hold unconditional love and forgiveness in these times.
Sure, absolutely. Like, totally agree. It's like the whole of the planet is stepping up out of its codependence, you know, and again, coming back to this external power, you know, God is outside myself, it's raining down upon me, and I will seek the wrath of God. Or, you know, that was the program that came in, certainly when I was growing up, you know, and yeah, beliefs hold people in that kind of program of, I can only do this. It's limits. When we come from an infinite universe, you know, before we came from our parents, we came from our star race, from the universe, you know, and we belong to that universe. And when we arrive here on the planet, there's so much of this programming that is conducted through the family. So I can empathize with a lot of people that I work with as well. And, you know, they change, they grow away from their families. But, you know, I also believe that at the core of our DNA, and, you know, this is something that, you know, yourself, myself, and Marie will be covering at the Weaving the Dream, is that the DNA is kind of constricted. And if we return back to our family and we can see eye to eye our soul connection with each member of our family, we will actually be able to rediscover the fractured soul, the soul fractures that exist. And when we can actually begin to see these, you know, this is the step-by-step process of going within, is just recognizing where the soul has been fractured over a long period of time. It's like being forged, like a horseshoe that's been hammered and hammered and hammered and hammered. And, you know, for me, working with people and working on myself as well, and understanding that deeper, deeper, deeper self-love. We think we love ourselves. Well, your soul's got a lesson for you, you know, and your soul comes in and says, well, do you remember this? And I really feel that this eclipse window, we're able to access multiple timelines. I'm seeing it every day with the people that I'm working with. And when we can access those multiple timelines and give acknowledgement, and, you know, that's one of the big problems that's happening with every Indigenous culture on this planet. They have been displaced. They've been taken out of a place of safety, which is their home. And then they've just been hammered and hammered and more. What a great setup, so people don't wake up and remember who they are. And I feel that this is multiplied over the whole of the planet. And then that soul that is wounded becomes codependent, because it needs support, it needs assistance, it's broken. Yeah. And then we just start up this other belief structure about codependence and relationship. And so, you know, there's a lot of work happening on a lot of multidimensional levels at the moment to heal. And I feel acknowledgement is such a powerful, witnessing and acknowledgement are some of the most powerful thing. And when those people are held by that program and we can witness that in absolute compassion. You know, I also, some people aren't ready to hear that. And for me personally, I realized, well, it's not my job to fix people. But I certainly love working with people when they're ready to take this journey, you know, because, yeah, beliefs, they can become locked in. But I believe that the eyes of each family member is part of your soul remembering. And it's a very powerful exercise. And if there is conflict within the family, then maybe you can just feel into the eyes of your family member, because if you separate there, your soul becomes more and more fractured.
Yeah. Yeah, it distance itself. And, you know, there's always that person in the tribe that runs off to gain more knowledge or understanding about the greater world and then brings it back as a gift. And when there's a fractured family and when there is just that confusion within the self because of these relationships that didn't work out, that attempted to raise you, you know, can be very difficult, you know, the projections and, you know, the confusion and the programming of what a family feels it needs to, you know, stand up to feel like it's measuring up, that the whole concept of freedom is very threatening. Spiritual freedom is threatening. A person that really wants to stand on their own, even if they're in a great alignment with integrity, can absolutely threaten a system that is saying that you need to follow these rules in order to be on track. And so rules are important, but we've lost connection to cosmic and natural laws and the fact that life is our teacher and that we're given experiences for a reason to be able to understand them through our own wisdom body, through our own direct connection with source. And so, yeah, we have a really, really damaged and troubled history because most people really mean well, and they're so afraid of differences and opposition that we, you know, have forgotten that true oneness is diversity and harmony. And that's how the ecosystem based on diversity working together. Everybody knows their role. Everybody's true to themselves. But if you're playing a lesser role than your true self, it's going to take you into a place of rebellion, criminality, dysfunction, or being very sensitive to artificial intelligence signals or looping and trauma patterns. And so there's some that can go through a lot of trauma and still maintain that sacred space, but others that can be easily infiltrated, not because they're not strong, but because it might be multi-generational for so long that they are ending up possibly going down an artificial, you know, timeline that is ending up being something that is breathing down all our necks as this sort of end of the world scenario that could lead to great catastrophe and the same kind of traumas we've experienced in the past with all the cataclysms and exploding planets, that we're basically so traumatized that it's easy to fall into a trance so we don't feel the pain. And it does take a lot to just being willing, you know, to face it and to, you know, understand that losing our soul essence is equal to the contamination of the elements of the planet, the contamination and pollution of water, the chemtrails spraying in our skies, the geoengineering, the misuse of the fire element, and the degradation of environments, and the extinction of animals. That is an outer reflection of how depleted we are. And when we can begin to give that part of ourselves the time and energy and focus and let the rest of it not rule us and determine our self-worth, and we can be more transparent and willing to hold hands together and rehabilitate together, there's no end to what we're capable of. We're just so afraid of being vulnerable. And what I love about what we're going to do at this event is breaking that facade and lifting that veil, because one of the main things is that ego identification with just, what if I get abandoned? What if I get made fun of? What if I get bullied? What if I, and there's people that are still holding the sacred space to just be real, and it's going to ripple out, because the bullies want that too. And that's why the forgiveness is important, because there's some that have been so hardened by the abuses they've gone through that they don't believe it's possible, that they become envious of those that might represent that freedom. Even, you know, like the other programs we talk about. And it doesn't mean that one shouldn't be held accountable, but it has to start with having the love and compassion to be able to face that, because we're all being held accountable to where we've given our power away and where we've felt victimized. And it's not like it's our fault, but at the same time, we can't blame. We have to meet each other halfway. And that's what true balance is. I don't blame you. I don't blame myself, but here is the root of this fragmentation, and let's, you know, just choose to drop the blame game and the duality, and just be willing to hear each other, and be willing to expose the wounds, because really the mother force that is returned to the planet is very much encouraging that within us, because she's suffered the same sort of wounds. So this is an ascension based on the ability to be open to not creating subpersonalities that override those wounds to the point where we're acting out false expressions of ourselves that can push people away, like narcissism, or, you know, everybody else is at fault and I'm just a victim. You know what I mean?
I think that's sure. I think that's part of the step-by-step process. You know, first people have to acknowledge that they're in that victimhood, you know, and then there's the step of the liberation from the victimhood. You know, I see that with my clients that I work with over a period of time, and from my own personal experience as well. You know, I was an easy target when I was in my victim consciousness. Now that you know, you can come back and acknowledge those situations where you have given away your power and you can reclaim that, then you're in a state of liberation, you know. And I think it's really important for people, you know, we are in a really, I feel like the planetary activity is asking us to embrace much more compassion than we can even imagine we can muster. I mean, it's probably because, you know, if people are in their victim consciousness, it doesn't mean that we want to exclude or hold them in that, you know.
They need to feel
we're creating a space for people to step out of that and into a place of empowerment, but not everybody will want to make that journey, and that's fine, you know.
It does have to be acknowledged that there's no way to recover from being a victim if you can't admit that you are, you know what I mean? It's like,
yeah.
And you and I are very similar. There's no such thing as denying it, even fear. But if a person keeps themselves locked into it and creates these false personas in order to mask the fact that that's what they're operating from, then that victim consciousness or that fear can never be resolved. So the more we can admit, hey, I'm a victim, hey, I'm in fear, the better off we are, because in the end we become empowered. When we're, you know, locked in the victim mentality, very often we're not willing to admit it because we just feel sorry for ourselves and everybody else has screwed us over. And it's not willing to actually admit that it's okay to feel like a victim and to have fear. But there's no way to get over it and step into the warrior if we don't first, you know, look at the wounds we have. How can we possibly heal a gaping wound in our physical body if we don't give it the space to be bandaged up and to have the right things put in our body to help keep the immune system strong?
Sure.
It's going to get infected. So that's what I, you know, love about, especially the three of us coming together, because we work that kind of energy with people. And I'm just glad you brought that up, because we can't, you know, we can't be in denial. It has to be about, you know, really holding space and amplifying the, you know, solution and the antidote.
Sure. Well, I mean, you know, the society with the personality matrix that you're talking about, you know, it's the setup that personality matrix doesn't provide any roadmaps for people to actually walk through this process, which is the unique thing about what yourself and Marie and myself and a lot of other amazing facilitators are doing on the planet, is we're providing this space to create roadmaps for people to step out of that. And, you know, I have a lot of empathy for people who find it really difficult to, you know, that are locked into that lower energy of feeling like they want to give up. And I can really understand why they feel that. But if, you know, maybe their magic has been cut down or chopped down, they've got complete amnesia that they're a magical being, you know, and we're all really, really magical. And the personality matrix doesn't allow for magic or spirituality or emotional maturity. And so, and then the false masks of personality disorders begin to then run that show. And I can really see this two divide in our communities, but that's a big bag of a conversation. But, you know, I really constantly see that. And so, you know, our intention, our united intention, and that's what I love about yourself and Marie and myself is that our intention is united for the passion to create roadmaps for people, to give them some direction about sifting through this unconscious memory. And it's very in tune with the red moon year, because the red moon, and you being a red moon, the red moon frequency is about universal water and purification and memory, and memory goes beyond this lifetime. And some people don't even know that they don't have that belief. But from my incarnation, I've been blessed and kind of enlightened by lots of many different incarnations that I've come in with, and why that shapes my personality the way it does. So I feel that it's definitely a time for people, and letting go. So a lot of people in the New Age culture talk about letting go, and what I say when I'm working with people, I'll feel something in their subconscious, and I'll say, hey, what happened there when you were 7? And they're like, oh, it was just this, and it's all over now, and it's in the past. And that happened years ago, it's gone now. I've let it go. I was like, well, I can still feel it here in your body, in this part of your body here. And so you've let go with your mind, but have you let go with your heart, and have you released that fully, so that every trauma, I believe, in this life creates a gift if we can get to the other side, if we can gain insight. And the Tolteca and all shamanic traditions always include this before the colonial invasion, is that the healing comes from the inside. And when we can say we've let go, that means we've received the gift of insight. We understand why we're having this lesson, and then we can mature into understanding just how old our beings are, and how long we have been here, coming back again and again in the name of connecting with Gaia and protecting her. So, I find it really fascinating that the whole personality matrix is just reeling this future generation into this weird car crash of an outcome, which is disembodying people from their physical bodies. And we will be doing physical practice in weaving the dream, because the body is the way that we can clear and transmute. And sitting in front of a computer screen day in, day out, playing computer games is not the pathway to healing.
Just escape.
And
yeah.
So we have to be able to move that, and we have to be able to move beyond the plane of mind into the heart. As the Hopis say, we're making the biggest journey at this point in time, and it's from the head to the heart. And
right.
Then in the Tao, we're bringing that heat, that fiery passion of the heart, and we're bringing it down into the lower Dantian, or the Sadhisvana. So there's so many. We are the most amazing biological computer we can ever imagine. Everything external in the cyber realm is a replica, and not a very good replica of our capabilities. The computer system at this point in time is not an intuitive device. We may be able to use our intuition to use it, but the intuition is coming from us. This cyber realm does not have a third eye. It does not have a heart chakra. And so what we have to understand is give ourselves a break and acknowledge ourselves that we actually are the best biocomputer, and that we have all these magical abilities. Yes, we can learn by applying these things to the cyber realm and learning different skills from it, but most of it comes from in here and in here. And our connection to the earth. The Schumann resonance is off the Richter at the moment. And so there's huge photonic activity from the sun, and also huge Hertz frequencies coming from the earth. How is sitting in front of your desk or whatever every day allowing you to access this incredible energy that's pouring in?
And
so it's amazing times, really amazing.
Absolutely, it is. I think people are starting to realize that the school systems and the things that are put in front of us that are encouraged from society is in, oh, this is the latest technology, and give your kids the latest iPhone, and it's the computer age. And yes, it's great. I mean, we wouldn't be able to be talking to each other,
Fantastic.
the audiences that we are without it. But
Yeah.
if it overrides the spiritual development and that level of awareness, then it's just a device that is part of keeping that programming in lockdown. And the personality matrix, the detrimental part of it is that we either get labels of, oh, you're successful and you're like this particular name or figure. But if you're not, but you're really advanced, you might, and I mentioned this earlier in the interview, just the whole like bipolar or depression or depressive disorder in the pharmaceutical industry is so detrimental because there's so many advanced souls born all the time. And because they're locked into the system that says, this is what this means because we're not fitting into that or this, is where we create events to rise above that and to appreciate the true soul signature and the true nature of the purifying agents that are available now in this particular era, that are now more available than they ever have been. So what's wonderful about this ascension period and about what we all have in common is we work with calendars, we work with data. It's not just channeling from some maybe unknown source that might present itself as some sort of entity or name. When you look at maps, when you look at data, when you look at like astrology, when you look at the Mayan, calendar as well, you're actually able to look at things that relate to planetary spheres and alignments and things that impact our organs, the stargates, the earth grids, and our own glandular system and our own DNA and where it's been compromised. And as we do that work, we begin to see through the lies. We begin to re-identify ourselves, not with the labels that we've been thrown, whether they're positive or negative, because duality is either you either get a good label or you don't get a good label. And it really depends on the person you're talking to, because that is part of the control of the families we're born into and how they treat us. And when we start to really do the soul work together, when we start to really connect with our true divine inheritance of the planetary consciousness that is now grounded in the earth plane and the cosmic alignments and the mother, father, Trinity and child that's born through that union within us with our own creative essence, the sky's the limit as far as what we can create. Because we haven't even begun to experience what this biological vessel is capable of. And so
we have not.
Needs to look at themselves. What is your concept of self-worth and what does it mean to you? And when you can step back and look at it objectively, you can start to see the damage that's been done, because a lot of what develops our self-worth has nothing to do with who we truly are. It has to do with what's been projected upon us. And that is the whole idea of the false Saturn system, that we are crumbling, especially in this eclipse time, because Pluto is conjunct Capricorn full moon in the South Node, which is absolutely transforming the way we have related to our physical bodies and our own reality. So it's perfect that we're going into the roots, because the roots are where we need to address it. And the North Node, being the mother energy, is the guiding principle. And so what's great about our event coming up is it's right after these eclipses, and you were talking about the significance that it holds in the Mayan calendar. Talk about that a little. That would be awesome.
Yeah, well, I know it's so amazing, and I love this bridging of astrology, particularly esoteric astrology like you do, and Red Moon, and we're finishing a 13-year cycle. So we began this cycle in 2006, and so we're moving now until 2019, and it's a really, really big ending of a cycle. So this magnetic moon began 13 years ago, and now we're in the cosmic moon. The cosmic frequency is about purification. The cosmic frequency is about enduring in order to transcend, so that we can come into a state of presence. So everybody's feeling the endurance right now. Everybody's just feeling this endurance. And so with that, in a cosmic year, it's like you can feel and see and hear everything. It's like somebody's turned up the channels, and it's like so amped. And so this is only going to continue on until July 25th. And then by the time we get to July 26th, we're going to come around to this new grand 13-year cycle of the mastery of timelessness, receptivity, and enchantment, which is the White Wizard. So that's why we chose the event at that particular time. But, you know, there's so much to share, Laura. I think I'm running out of battery now, but we could talk all day as we normally do. But I just want to thank you so much for making the time, and look forward to sharing more with you at Weaving the Dream. Check it out, everybody. On the Facebook events is Weaving the Dream Conference Australia. And if you want to check out a web page, you can go to Weaving the Dream at Webnode and check out Laura's videos, my webpage, Galactic Switchboard, and of course also Dr. Marie Batchelor. We look forward to joining with you all and doing some more. I love this unified healing, the soul work, where that's really what we're going to be doing at this event, is the soul work. So we look forward to having you in the field.
Yes, thank you everybody for joining us, and I hope to see you at the event in Australia. And thank you, Maya, and good night, everybody.
Good night, everyone. Ciao, ciao.